Welcome to the Customer Catalyst Conference 2021, to our session focusing on customer technology with James Hyde, Chief Executive Officer of James & James E-commerce Fulfillment. One of the many extraordinary things about James & James is the sheer enthusiasm of its customers. I mean, this is a fulfillment company, not a hipster Silicon Valley unicorn, and yet by thinking like a customer and thinking how customers can be served better, James & James is building amazing product-led growth. In this session, James Hyde speaks with Daniel Borsa.
Hi, I'm James Hyde, founder of James & James Fulfillment. I want to tell you a bit about our journey for James & James and how we've used technology to drive exponential growth in the world of e-commerce, and specifically creating a sea change in technology. So a little bit about what we do. So we store, pick, pack and dispatch orders for online companies. We warehouse them, pick the orders and put them in the post. Specifically for scale-ups, we're helping brands with proven products grow faster. We only really work in the world of e-commerce for pick and pack, and we look at small light products for a range of clients. And I want to talk a bit about the story of how we got into this, because this is never a business that I envisaged running. But first, talk about the fact that we won the Queen's Award for Innovation, another Queen's Award for Export recently. And that's been because we approached this business from a very different place to logistics. We came from very much how can technology transform this market, rather than how do we just make fulfillment a little bit better than it used to be done. And a lot of that is again driven through our technology platform, which is built in-house. We run a fulfillment centre in the UK, one in the US and one in Europe, all through proprietary software at the back end and the front end that's customer and client facing. That's all built in-house, actually built by James Strachan and myself originally, and then kind of been added to as we've grown the business to multiple locations worldwide, and as we continue to add some more pins to that map in the next few years. So our mission really was to change the industry, and I'll come on to that in a second as to where that comes from, and create change for the better, because the industry really was 10 years ago we started the company quite backward as far as technology, and we wanted to challenge that and create something better, because when we look at the customer in this market, which is obviously the e-commerce customer at home, one they never used to see any part of the fulfillment sector and how deliveries happened other than the tracking link that got from couriers. But even the retailer, who is also a client or customer in effect of fulfillment centres, the data they saw and their customer experience was again really quite poor, and technology bridged that gap for us, which is how we got into this entire market. So winding back the clock over 10 years now, I was working at a company called Green Bay Harvest, and James Strachan joined me, and we were working really as office managers and a bit of website tweaking, selling honey to people who wanted to buy top quality Manuka honey from New Zealand. And we used a fulfillment company, or they used a fulfillment company then, up in Norfolk. And these are some pictures from the time of me going to help stock take, because the issue we had was we didn't have a lot of stock, and we never knew exactly what we did or didn't have. We'd get a report once every Friday with the inventory on that said, this is how many, this is the up-to-date inventory. So we only had a weekly stock report, and we never knew whether that included or didn't include the orders on Friday, because it depended what time the orders got packed and what time we got the report. So we were always plus or minus 20 jars at any one point, and that made it really hard to run the business. And we said, look, we could find a better supplier. No interest in running this ourselves, but we could find Green Bay a better provider of fulfillment, and we searched the market for something better. And obviously a lot of companies then using either telephone and clipboard. Some had IT systems, and we found companies with much better IT, but that IT was in their building, and so there was a kind of 1 to 2 hour delay. It wasn't quite a week now, but there's still a couple of hours delay getting data to their web portal or back to our shopping cart from what was actually happening in the building. And we just sat there and thought, you pay with a credit card, that authorization goes through to a bank and back to the website and then to the retailer in seconds. Why is that technology that enables that real-time data flow not used in the world of fulfillment? Because there's a lot of data, obviously, that we don't want to be on the phone when, and we'll come to examples again, but you get a customer phone up and say, "Where's my order?" And then you say, "Oh, let me a minute. I'll just have to phone the fulfillment centre as the retailer." So you're hanging up one phone, picking up the other phone, backwards and forwards, and then the customer's gone out, and it's just hard. It's hard to give a really good client and customer experience in that. So we started the software company. We did it in a very sort of low-key corner of somebody else's building, because we were building a software business at that time. We were going to do it as a proof of concept. We built this office to my mother-in-law's windows from her old house. We put together the office from some plywood and kind of moved in. We made a little meeting room from some charity shop furniture. Again, all very much on the shoestring. We built a website. At the time, we built a website. I drew this in Paint, and James Strachan then built it in HTML. I think we got to the top page of Google within a couple of months, simply because the whole fulfillment sector hadn't invested in the world of sort of the online web and the internet. Well, we started running a small fulfillment company using some borrowed and cheap equipment and using James's car occasionally when Royal Mail forgot to turn up to pick and pack these orders, with this view of we're using data in a more intelligent way and a more real-time way to serve it. And that's something we've done now for the last 11 years. We continually develop that software. And I want to tell you a little bit about kind of how that's evolved and how we put the customer first in thinking about that technology, and then look at them. So the company's had exponential growth, as you can see. We took on investment in 2020, the first time. Everything else has been self-funded through profit. And we never again set out to run a physical operation, but it just turned out that the service we had was quite unique, and we had a lot of customers knocking at the door. So we've grown from, I think the first year was £60,000 of turnover to last year it's over 40 million of turnover. We've won a wide number of awards, fastest growing private owned companies in the UK, Venture of the Year, BBC coverage, finalist, the Queen's Award again for Innovation, Queen's Award for Export, fastest 1,000 growing companies in Europe. So we've been very, very successful. And the key difference again is that technology and the use of the technology, which I think I really want to talk about then. How do you use technology? We talk about a gap here sometimes. There's a gap between what goes on in the fulfillment center and then what the retailer and the customer sees. And the technology, for me, it bridges that gap and it brings the customer and the retailer in. And sometimes we even say that, customers are doing their own fulfillment, clients doing their own fulfillment. When they use our service, they actually get to see more of what goes on than when they do it themselves. And that's because the technology gives them the insight to be able to actually see what's happening and what's going on. So the first thing in that is data visibility. So this is just a dashboard showing all the different statuses of the orders in processing for the day, which ones have been picked, which ones have been packed, which ones have issues, addresses that won't allocate to a shipping service because the postcode might be wrong, products out of stock. And it lets the customer then, of the retailer as a client, I refer to retailers as a client and the end consumer as a customer for simplicity, but it allows the retailer to pinpoint which orders have issues on and help resolve them with the end customer before it becomes late. So it's how are we proactively giving that information that you can just see it. And that's really key, because even when the end customer phones up a retailer and says, "Where's my order?" Now it's a case of, you find the order number, you see where it is, and you can give them, say, I can see Jane's just gone out, she's picking it right now, it'll be shipped today. And that certainty saves everyone a lot of time and effort, but it also means a great customer experience for the end customer. And that visibility isn't just seeing the data, it's controlling it. So this is a map now of all the different brands that a retailer might have, the different channels they sell through, the different allocation rules, and then also said we've got multiple fulfillment centers, which order gets allocated to a fulfillment center, and then where does it ship. And we put the power to control, which countries get shipped from what fulfillment center to the retailer. So the retailer can configure everything about their fulfillment online. And that means that we've got lower support costs because we're taking less calls, but they also got more control. And they also got the control when they want it. So if they want to log in on a Sunday night at midnight and change something, they can. Whereas in the old way of doing things, they'd email their account manager, and then you'd also have to wait until someone picked that up on a Monday and then change it. And in the world of e-commerce, obviously, orders being packed 24/7, all different countries around the world, that kind of delay of, oh, well, I'll change the setting, email them now and the setting will get changed on Monday or Tuesday even, we could be thousands of orders dispatched in that time. So this ability to see the data and then change how the settings are actually working in real time is really key to bringing retailers into the fold of actually having genuine control over their business. Likewise, we can analyze that data. So we can look at, and it's probably a bit small to see, but we're looking here at which products have got good amounts of inventory, which ones have got too much inventory, which products have we never seen. And then below that, you can just see at the top of another report. I'm actually looking at storage cost. So we do something very clever here. We look at the dimensions of the product. We charge storage based on its exact size. So we charge storage by the day, by the product. And that means if we know the RRP, which we know the sales price, we get that from the shopping cart data, and we know the cost price, we can actually look at how much does it cost to store that product versus how much profit do you make when you sell it, and how often are you selling it, and how much stock do we have in the fulfillment center. And then we can tell you actually, there's some stock here where if you don't put it on a sale or clear it now, it's going to cost you more in storage than it will do in profit. And we've got lots of examples where we've helped clients to either, in the best case, run a sales campaign to clear down that stock. In the worst case, we've had clients who've had to send that product to charity or destruction or elsewhere because actually it's costing so much in storage, it's just not moving. And they've been able to make that decision early and do something about it. And we'll look at best before end dates, which really bring that kind of window of sales down. When you look at best before end dates, it's how much sooner can that analysis and insight bring forward those decisions. So the earlier you make the decision to move that stock on, the less product gets wasted. And that's obviously giving, again, more power and insight to the retailer to make better decisions. And that's all through using technology, not just giving them the data, but just how do you present the data. There's so much data in the world today that it's about creating data in a way that's really easy to understand. And again, we deal with retailers who are multinational corporations all the way down to very small online sellers. How do you address that data in a way that every different audience can understand it? Because it's very easy, some people want Excel spreadsheets to download and go through by hand. Other people, it's much better just to say, here's an area we think is a concern, have a look at this. And that prompting is what makes it the technology be able to automate, to some extent, helping humans make decisions. Likewise, customer communication, and this is a huge thing with e-commerce, obviously around the Christmas peak, which is coming up shortly, is that expectation setting and then the communication. So we do something differently. Rather than giving a tracking number when we dispatch it, we actually give a tracking number or a tracking link at the point we've received the order. So we can show this tracking you can see here, and we're looking at when the order's received, it's out for picking, who's picking it, when's it backed, when's it going to get boxed and labelled, and then once it's dispatched, we then pull in the tracking data from the courier, so it's all in one place. And that means that if an order is a busy time, maybe Christmas, Black Friday, it's a day or two before it gets dispatched, at least the customer can see someone's working on my order, and it gives them that confirmation and affirmation that the order is going to get to them and makes them reassured, so they have a better customer experience, and it reduces the number of phone calls and inquiries that the retailer gets, so they have a better experience as a retailer as well. And again, that's that keeping everyone on the same page. So how do we get that tracking information in a way that's really easy for the end customer to consume as well? And then we can do the same with returns. So Amazon, I'm sure everyone's returned something. Amazon have built probably the kind of industry standard now returns process where you say, I want to return this product, you select your reason, you print the postage label or your QR code, and you send it back. And for us, again, we're working with lots of small and medium-sized businesses that are rapidly growing. They don't have the technology to necessarily build that whole return suite. So what we've done is build a return suite very similar to that kind of Amazon process that they can embed in their own site, but that we run on our server, where they can add a set of reasons for return. They can put in preferred resolution, or I want an exchange, or I want a refund. They can put quantities in. They can actually take a photo. If they're using this on their phone, they can take a photo of their phone, upload an image of what's broken or what's faulty, and then send that in as an RMA to a return request. And then based on whether it's damaged or whether they just don't like it, we can then allocate prepaid shipping label or QR codes which take to the post office and scan on their phone. And again, that data goes straight back to the retailer, so the retailer knows that item's coming back. They can see the tracking. We send the customer the tracking link so they can track on the same page. They track the delivery. They get to track the return back. So they've got the packing slip there and the label, and then they've got this tracking so they can actually track that order back to the retailer and track the refund. At the same time, the retailer's got visibility of what's coming back. So that helps everyone, again, stay on the same page with information. It just gives a better customer experience in there. Something around 20 to 30% of all online purchases are returned, compared to just 8% in store. And one of the shames of it is that data is often lost. So it might be, for instance, you're selling clothing and you've got a t-shirt that's always a size too big. Now, it might be the customer keeps ticking on the paper form, it's too large, or it's too big. But if you're not able to correlate that data to the product and then run insights that say, actually, did you know this product is the most returned product, or this product here keeps coming back because it's too big? Well, that means that retailers got that option of putting on their website, this product runs a bit large, you might want to order a smaller size. And again, that's improving, reducing wastage, but it's actually improving the customer experience, because we're now feeding back issues that stop them repeating, that give the customer a much, much better experience of purchasing and getting the right thing fulfilled first time that fits, which I think for me is key. And so all of that is what's helped our business grow, and it's actually helped our clients grow. So we've helped our clients grow enormously, and that's a big thing for me. Is James and James is all about helping companies scale up, taking companies already got a proven product and a proven sales channel that's on the growth journey, and how do we help them really scale their business? So that for me is a fantastic thing that technology has enabled in helping bring that benefit to customers.
So, hi, James. Thank you very much. Fascinating story of a UK success story in e-commerce. You've had phenomenal growth. You've gone from like 0 to 40 million plus revenue sterling in just under 10 years. And I've actually seen the amazing facility you just moved into at the beginning of the year, not least because you had all that to cope with during COVID. I know it's something like the size of 13 football pitches, and it's just vast. And I just think it's a really interesting story how you have created that technology sea change with cloud-based e-commerce software. So I suppose it'd be great to ask you about data. So I know, we talk in the book about data is the new oil, but what has that really meant for you in your business, and how important data is with technology?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I mean, these are kind of the four big things I had for, how we've used technology in sea change. So the first thing with data is obviously capturing it. And we capture a huge amount of data on every single part of the fulfillment process, all the logging and all the users and all of that is all captured. And then for me, it's more than just capturing it, because actually lots of companies capture data and then they store it away in a huge vault, but trying to sift through it and find out what's useful and what's not useful is quite hard. And the more data you have, how you make use of it becomes more difficult. So making it visible is our kind of key, and then actually making it easy to digest, because again, you've got spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data. How do you know what to look at? How do you even find the bits to look at? And once you've looked at it, what does it actually mean? And I think for me, where technology can help is taking, and AI is helping even further, is taking huge data sets and making it actually meaningful to the person.
And so you talk about AI and just constantly listening to the voice of the customer, which is obviously one of the other sea change drivers that we're going to hear about. How have you used that dynamically, listening to the voice of the customer and using AI to then improve what data is actually used?
Yeah, so we don't use AI as such. What we do is look at key areas that we know, businesses might, so stock storage, if you've got too much, too little, how much space they're using, where are the orders going in the world, which postage service they're using, and then construct reports that kind of proactively say, actually, we've noticed this trend. Are you aware this exists? So we're kind of creating prompts for people to push them in to look at the data. So obviously there's lots and lots of reports you could look at. How can you prompt people to say, actually, have a look at this one? We don't know, it might not be worth looking at today, we don't know, but, we suspect there's a change here you might be interested in.
Okay. And I know you were going to talk about who is actually the user of the technology
Yeah.
and the data.
Again, that was my second thing on this, is understanding the user, because it's all well and good, giving this data out, and we've got the example of giving it to the retailer, giving it to the consumer. We've got obviously people in our support team here supporting the retailers in our support team, and then we've got the workers in the FC, the team members in the FC actually doing the picking, packing, and the management down there. And all of those people kind of want to see the same data. They all want to see all the orders and where they're going and when they need to be processed, but they all want to see a different view. And so one of the things technology enables us to do is to take the same piece of data, what status is this order in, and present it in 4 different ways to 4 different people. And their experience and knowledge is very different. So an end consumer might want a very simplified view that says, here is your order, and it's going to be with you tomorrow. The retailer might want to see that data, but they might want to see it in more detail, knowing which courier it's going by, what time it left. They might want to see it amalgamated on a report with other orders, or they might want to see the status of orders. So it's not just presenting data blindly, but that whole kind of customer experience is think about this specific user and then how do you present the data for the user rather than just for someone.
Okay. And I know there was really interesting statistics you shared about 20 to 30% of online purchases are returned, where in contrast to about 8% in a physical store. How have you used the technology to help reduce those level of returns for your clients?
There's some. So one is ship the right thing out. A small percentage of returns in e-commerce is because the wrong thing gets picked and packed. So we use a lot of technology to make the process very, very accurate to get the right thing shipped, including checking the weight of the parcel is the same as the estimated weight of those products when they're shipped. The second thing is stopping those returns, which you said, where if a product keeps getting returned, or how do we flag that? How can someone think about, the product keeps coming back, maybe I shouldn't sell it anymore, or maybe I need to put a warning or more information, or update the product description so it's clear what the customer's getting. And then I think it's actually embracing it and saying, part of buying something online is the ability to try it on at home and return it. And so you've got to make that process easy and smooth that part of the customer experience so that it's actually a positive thing that something gets returned.
Okay, brilliant.
My third takeaway was really about empowerment, and it's about how do you give that control to the customer. So I spoke earlier around letting a retailer adjust the settings at a weekend, when we're not necessarily got a support team available, or a support team doing something else. And even for the end customer, actually, why can't the end customer cancel the order before it's picked? So how do you get that information so that the end customer doesn't have to phone up the retailer? They can push a button online and cancel an order in progress. I think that, for me, is a big shift.
So in the book, we talk about the shift from the product economy to the customer economy. So obviously in the product economy, you have little choice, as a customer, what you could buy, whereas now there is so much data and technology to allow you to access that information about, from reviews to the whole experience. So tell us sort of how you've seen that shift, the impact of the customer economy on your business in e-commerce.
Yeah, I think in the world of e-commerce, customers expect to know where things are. They expect things to be delivered when they say they're going to be delivered. For me, it's not necessarily about, is it going to get delivered in the next hour, but it's about them having certainty of that, and also control. I don't want it delivered today. I want it delivered tomorrow. I want it delivered to a different address. And we've seen couriers with really great technology doing that. But the couriers that have succeeded, I think, in that market and have got the best reviews and the best reputation are those that have listened to what customers want and then said, how do we build technology that helps enable that, rather than build a product and give that. And you said, not build a product to force it on the customer, but actually listen to what the customer desires. And then build the technology to enable that.
And I think what you've achieved actually is really interesting about how you've constantly listened to the voice of the customer and then you've fed it back into the development of the e-commerce software. So fascinating.
Yeah. Thanks. And the final one that I had was to kind of to integrate, not integrating. When you talk about technology, there's this big holy grail where you put in a huge ERP system across all aspects and all areas of your business that just is the all-seeing, all-knowing eye of all data, and everything is everything is known. It's an omnipotent system, and the theory sounds good, doesn't it? But in the practice I've seen, it never ever works. You spend more time chasing the holy grail than you actually spend using the data you've got. So for me, one of the lessons we've learned is use the best-in-class system. So we're using our own technology for the fulfillment of the pick and pack process. We use another piece of technology for our sales and marketing process, and we use another piece of technology from another company to do our support desk. And rather than run one big system with all the data, we've chosen the very best of software in each of those areas. And we don't integrate, again, we haven't tried to integrate every last piece of data. What we've done is, what's the most important thing? What's going to actually genuinely add value to the customer's perception and their ability to get what they need, and integrate that, because having the vital bits integrated quickly, it gives people something they can use now, rather than this constant striving for the holy grail of complete business integration. Which I think most people who have been in this sort of cycle in corporates will have seen that it never quite delivers what's promised.
And so would you say that's about sort of listening to the customer again and not having technology for technology's sake, and thinking actually what do they need to achieve, for that element of their customer journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about trying to think, okay, what is the customer experience and how do I deliver that customer experience? And actually, for us, the way we do client support here, we could build our own support system. But actually, somebody else has already built some really good support systems out there. The best experience we can give right now is to go and get a support system off the shelf that gives great support for that area, and us focus on our fulfillment solutions, because that's kind of our best focus. Trying to do everything all at once, you kind of spreading yourself too thin. You're not really putting the customer first.
Very interesting. So, in terms of your wrap up on technology sea change takeaways, what advice would you give to CEOs about how you create that fundamental sea change in technology to drive growth?
Yeah, I think the key there, so I've put on the slide the summary of the kind of four key areas which you talked about, but the overriding aspect of all of this is actually, there's 10 sea change areas that you've identified in there, but you have to look at all of them. So there's no point just saying, technology, I'm going to do these things and put technology in, because if you're not looking at the customer experience and how they see it, if you're not looking at the service desk, if you're not looking at the data size and all these other parts, if you don't look at the whole picture that the customer sees, then it's very hard to implement technology in a way that works. So I think although technology is a key sea change in there, it is one of many, and all of them need to be considered in making that. So I think that'd be my overall. These are the areas. It's about the data. It's about looking at how you present the data in a meaningful way, giving them control, and then integrating the data to give that their experience. But it's about doing that within the context of the wider customer experience.
And so, just to end on that, I think you had a really nice phrase that you shared with me before about all of those 10 sea change drivers. You can't do any one in isolation. Can you just sort of finish with that?
Key.
Advice?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's absolutely right.
James Hyde, thank you very much for sharing your phenomenal technology sea change for success story.
Thanks, Daniel.
And James is now free online to answer any questions you have. I know people have been asking as we've been going through the session, but he is more than happy to ask your questions. Thank you for joining the session.